Did you hear from Scott by chance today, Chris?
No.
Neither way. Okay. Claire, I heard. Yeah, there's Claire. Oh, we're at 7, so that's great. All right, go team. Enjoy the Zoom meetings while we have them.
All right, there's Scott.
Excellent. Well, I see all the board members, Chris, right, that we're anticipating.
Yeah, we're all set, Steve.
Cool. All right, Michelle? Good?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, we're not wasting any time tonight.
There you go.
Good evening and welcome to the June 7th, 2021 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur and I'm chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. This meeting is being conducted virtually via video conferencing in lieu of meeting in the council chamber at Summit City Hall, Summit, New Jersey. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page. In addition, members of the public can view and participate in the meeting by following the link provided on the agenda. Members of the public may also submit written comments and questions to the zoning board secretary in advance of the meeting to be read aloud during the meeting. Such written comments shall not be considered testimonial and shall not be considered by the board in its determination on any application. Individuals wishing to provide testimony as to any application must participate virtually with both audio and video enabled. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with applicants on getting their applications together, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You will be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Mr. Nicola, will you please call the roll of the members?
Sure, Chairman Spur.
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Newell.
Here.
Mr. Yuko.
Here.
Mr. Steiner is excused and Mr. Mullen is excused as well. Ms. Schwartzstein.
Here.
Mr. Millay.
Here.
Mr. Wickets.
Here.
Ms. Toth.
Here.
Ms. Sager.
Here.
And Dr. Levine.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum, you can proceed.
We generally hear the cases in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some cases are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals are done with their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, we need to know who you are and where you live. It is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. Please state your name before speaking or asking a question. And please do not talk over each other. This is even more important under the current circumstances. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time, you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed and we go into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your case to another date, and it will not be decided tonight. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in the resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the case. When I call your name, please tell me how many witnesses you have and whether you think you can complete your case within 30 minutes. First on the agenda this evening is Kathleen Damon, 11 Morris Court. Are you here, Kathleen? Oh, I see. Ooh, unmute for us.
Okay, can you hear us?
We can. Hello.
Hello.
We understand you may be waiting for an architect this evening.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we may take your case second if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
And then we'll check in after the conclusion of the first application to see kind of how we stand with your expert.
Okay, and just one point,
Mhm.
Kathleen just had a cochlear implant and the device doesn't get turned on until next week. So she's very hard of hearing at the moment. So
Okay.
I'll sort of be able to pitch in for her.
Okay, and your name, just so we know?
Ernie Gazelle.
All right, thank you, Ernie. All right. All right, next on the agenda will be Christian and Natalie Lind, 41 Oakley Avenue.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Christian, do you have any an attorney with you or any expert witnesses this evening?
We do not. It would just be myself. My wife was supposed to join, but she is at a sports game with the kids, unfortunately.
Oh, you're stuck in the air conditioning. Tough. All right, we'll likely start with you, Christian, but let me just tick through these other applicants. So
Looks like his wife is there, by the way.
Oh, is she?
Oh, there she is. Oh, well done. All right, I see her. Natalie at the sports field checking in. All right, let's check in next. Brandon Odenath, 20 Fairview Avenue. Brandon, are you here?
Yep. Hi.
Do you have an attorney or any experts with you this evening?
Just my architect, Bill Kaufman.
Okay. Cool. All right. And then fourth is Namia and Craig Chinquina, 38th Hawthorne Place. Oh, I think I see you there. Hello. Can't hear you though. Lost her. Oh, no, there you are. Can't hear you though. Look on the agenda, there's dial-in information if you're, okay. On the phone, but not connecting. All right, well, what we'll do is we're going to proceed with the second case on the agenda. We'll check back in with you. Give me a thumbs up if everyone's at least that you anticipate here on the case. Okay, all right, I'll take a thumbs up. All right, very well. We'll check back in. Thank you for your patience, and we'll check in to make sure that you can go tackle it in 30 minutes. You're perfect. All right, got all the right answers. All right, let's start then. Second on the agenda, Christian and Natalie Lind, 41 Oakley Avenue. Christian, if you can start us off, tell us a little bit about the application, the variances you're seeking, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So
Let me just swear you in first. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
It's Christian Lind, and last name is Lind.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Sure. So I think this should be pretty straightforward. So we were here, I think it was 4 or 5 months ago, to get approval for several renovations to our home, which was approved. And I think we got so caught up in all of the things we were looking to do. And one of the major things we're looking to do is move the garage to the front of the house. And I know one of the concerns from the board members was that we were going to have a cluttered garage and they didn't want to see our garage open with things falling out of it, which we totally agreed with. And we never even thought to ask, or we never even thought we needed a permit to install a shed in our backyard, because the thought was we hope to move all of the things from our garage out to a new shed that we had hoped to purchase. So after going through that first process, we then looked to get a shed, and our architect he's like, you need a variance for that. Or at least he thought he did. So we checked with the town, and sure enough, unfortunately, we have to, bother you guys again and go through this process again just to have a shed installed. So that's the main goal. The goal is, to basically get everything out of our garage so it can be used for our 2 large SUVs. And I think the only way to really do that is ultimately to have a shed installed. So that's all we're asking for. It's a 10 by 16 shed. I think it's just over 13 feet tall. Really straightforward. But if there's any questions or if I missed anything, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
First sign this is relatively de minimis request is Krista hand wrote their comments out. So for anyone that's been doing this a while, they know this was a quick one. But I do want to open it, of course, to the board. And Andy, make sure we give you whatever you need for the resolution on this. So inject there. I don't know, Chris, if you have anything that caught your eye on this shed request or.
And let me just clarify for the board that the request, it's related to the building coverage here. The additional shed that's being requested, as previously noted, there was a prior resolution approving the scope of the application. It just did not include the additional building coverage increase. I believe, as Krista noted, it was a 1.6% increase over the prior resolution. So that's what the board is considering here tonight.
Okay. Anyone from the board or our board professionals want to jump in on this shed application? No, Mr. Dower's taking a pass. No historic preservation, Claire, nothing like that. Okay.
And maybe I will ask Chris just to opine whether that additional slight building coverage creates any sort of stormwater or, runoff issues on the property, or is it de minimis?
I would say it's de minimis.
Thank you.
All right. Well, barring any further comment from the board, we'll have a slow start tonight. Any questions from members of the public? Is anyone from the public that's here? An aggrieved neighbor or anyone? No. Okay. All right, Mr. Lynn, this is the most boring application I've heard in a long time, but that's a good thing, I suppose. All right.
Speed up.
All right, so no questions from the public. We at this time would as well give the public the opportunity to offer their opinion, positive or negative, on the application. Pausing, hearing, seeing, no interest. Anything you would like to say in conclusion, Mr. Lynn, regarding your de minimis shed application with no negligible stormwater management impact?
No, I think I think we're good to go.
All right, let's jump into then, Andy, is there any need for any conditions on this? I mean,
I believe, there was no engineering report, correct?
Correct.
no.
Okay, so then, no, I would have no conditions.
Okay. All right, very well. All right, who wants to be the heavy hitter to tackle this one? Liz, will you do it for us? Start us off.
Sure.
Give Andy something for the resolution, please.
I think this is a modest ask, and you have plenty of room. You're not going to see it from the outside. You have plenty of wood that you're going to, hopefully put the shed next to it. And I would definitely approve this application.
Any other board members? Yep,
Yeah,
go ahead, Tom.
I can support it too. I don't know, it was mentioned, but just a note for the record, it is in a conforming location, so there's no need for any variance for the location. So that's a good thing. But yeah, it's a very de minimis application, a variance request. So I'm in support of it.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, no, Scott says no. So then I will agree with Liz and Tom to say yes, it's relatively de minimis. And I think in conformance with the general spirit of the prior application and can support this request for a modest shed. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Oh, Scott beat you to it, Tom.
I have a second, Tom. Half a second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Chairman Spurk.
Yes. All right. Enjoy the shed and good luck with the larger renovation, Linz.
Thank you very
Natalie
much.
for dialing in too. All right. I can't promise the other applications it will be that straightforward, but thanks for sticking with us. Just checking back in on 11 Morris Court. Ernie, any sign of your architect?
No, I don't think he's zoomed in yet.
Okay. Who are we looking for if we're just looking for a name, by the way?
Nick Bensley.
Nick Bensley. All right. We'll keep an eye out. We're going to move on then to the third application on the agenda then. All right. Brandon Odenouth, 20 Fairview Avenue. Where are you, Brandon? There you are.
Hello.
All right. We're going to swear you in, and then we'll let you similarly describe the application, the variances you're seeking, and we'll go from there.
Great.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
It's Brandon Odenath, Odenath.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Brandon, tell us a little bit about the application, the variances you're requesting, and we can go from there.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks for your time this evening. So a little bit of background. My wife and I moved out here to Summit almost 5 years ago. When we moved out here, we had a puppy, but no children. So we bought a house that was appropriately sized for that. Over the last 5 years, we've had two wonderful young kids. So we have a 3-year-old son and a 20-month-old daughter. And so as our family has grown, our house has kind of shrunk in comparison. So, we're looking to expand the home, effectively kind of grow it to a size that's, I guess, a little bit more fitting with the size of our family. For a bit of background, we're on Fairview Avenue, which is a lovely street. It's in a great neighborhood. So we love the location. It's convenient to parks and playgrounds and things that we use every day. So that's really nice. And I guess basically what we're asking to do is to be able to add on to the back of our home, to add a family room, mudroom, and powder room. We don't have a main floor bathroom right now, which is a little bit tricky with potty training, but working on that. But so it'll be a family room, powder room, and mudroom on the main floor, and then a master suite effectively above that on the second floor, master bedroom and bathroom. And then as we were doing that and trying to plan that out, we also decided to try to rebuild our garage, and which is at the back corner of our property and frankly kind of falling apart. And we decided if we're going to rebuild it, maybe we can improve the location of it and kind of the layout of the overall property. So that's effectively we're trying to pull the garage forward to be a bit closer to the house, to kind of facilitate a little bit more use out of that instead of it basically being an unused building in the back corner of the property. I think other points that I should mention, the adjacent lots to our property are all kind of fully built on. So I don't think we'd be able to buy more land to, get us back into the correct kind of ratios and coverage metrics. I'm sure I'm missing lots of things here, but I think that gives a little bit of background. I'm obviously happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, any questions for the applicant? Understanding we'll hear from Mr. Kaufman in a moment here, the architect. All right.
No question, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I was just looking at the plans and do you have like a patio in the backyard right now?
Yeah, sure. So there's, we have what was probably originally a porch and then closed in. There are steps off of, into the backyard from that, and they land onto a patio, a kind of brick patio where we have a, an outdoor table and chairs.
So part of that's going to go away when you build the addition?
That's right. But
then are you planning to put some kind of patio or deck off of the new addition?
So our plan is to not have steps out of the back of the house, like out of the addition. I think the plan was to basically keep the patio, what's left of it, kind of where it is, because that's where the steps walk out to. And then we don't have steps going out the back of the plan. So I think we'll kind of see how the property lays out at that point, but I don't plan on putting that. That's not in the plans. So we don't have an intention of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Mr. Kaufman, that's something you can talk about a little bit here. Not because we don't want you to come back, Brandon, but if it's something we can wrap into this application, at least address any additional variance requirements, let's try to do it if we can.
Yep.
Cool. Any other questions of the applicant from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Kaufman, we're just going to qualify you and then we'll let you jump in.
Sure. Good evening. Do you want to swear me in first?
Yes, please. If you could please raise your right hand.
Sure thing.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
William Kaufman, Kaufman.
And if you could briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before aside from Summit.
Sure. Again, William Kaufman. I'm a licensed and registered architect in the state of New Jersey. Have been for 26 years. My license is currently active and current in the state of New Jersey. I have testified as an expert witness in front of dozens of boards, including this one and the Board of Adjustments, Planning Board, and also New Jersey Construction Board of Appeals. The adjacent towns I've been an expert witness before: Berkeley Heights, Milburn, and you need 3, Long Hill Township are the closest 3, I think.
All right, thank you. And are there any questions from the board, or would you like to accept Mr. Kaufman's credentials at this point?
We will accept them and welcome him back. All right, Mr. Kaufman, go for it.
Great. So Brendan gave you a little bit of a background. He and his wife did engage my firm to help him solve some of the issues that they're faced with. Do we have the ability for me to share my screen so I can bring the exhibits up?
You should be able to share, or Chris.
Okay. Let me,
Bill, you should be able.
Great.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Let's move you guys out of the way. Can everyone see that screen that has sheet G101 on it? It's the site plan sheet.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so as Mr. O'North described, we're looking at a modest addition to the house, but I want to refer the board to G101. I'm going to note we received some reports from the board's committees middle of last week. So we, in an effort to sort of accommodate some of the obvious comments in both Ms. Anderson's report and some of the other ones, we did make some minor changes to these exhibits. So this exhibit that I'm going to share with you, I'll toggle between the 2, but you should have the current exhibit in front of you that has the requested information by Krista. So the sheet that we're looking at, I'm going to toggle between the 2, is G101 and the former G101. They just have different dates. One of them is dated May 14th, and the next one has a revision date of June 4th on it. So I'm going to describe the project and then we'll get into some of the changes. Sometimes they overlap, so the testimony will be a mix of kind of both. But if we refer to drawing H9, which is the upper right-hand corner of G101, That's the site plan. I don't know if can the board see that, or do I need to zoom in on that? Would it be helpful if I zoomed in? I'm just going to be referencing it with the cursor.
If you could zoom in, that'd be helpful. I'll take the bullet on that one. Even I'm squinting.
I'm just going to zoom in. It's a little bit more difficult as we're going live here to toggle. I should point out that the information that we derived the site plan from that's in front of the board was taken from a current survey that we had prepared by Blue Marsh Associates. I'm going to have to squint and find the date on that for the record, but it is May 11th, 2021. So the survey is current. This is drawing F1 on my sheet G101. And this has the depiction of the lot. The darker outline around the perimeter is the lot. The next line weight with the box in the front is the existing residence, two-story brick building. And the garage that was in question is into the northwest corner of the lot, to the rear of the lot. The home is flanked by an asphalt driveway that runs along the entire length of the northern line, pretty much right up against the property line. And then it just kind of pulls off about 1.5 feet as we get close to the garage. And the patio that Mr. Odenauth had referenced is directly behind the residence. Sorry about that. Love this technology. Just directly behind the residence on the southwest corner of the residence. We slide on over to H9, which is the proposed site plan. This gives you a little bit better indication of what the plan is. Again, the lighter lines in the front are simply the surveyed house, but with the context of interior spaces. So you can see there's a living room and a side porch to the south. And then in the back to the west rather, is the kitchen and the small eating area. The proposal is a two-story addition directly to the west of the building. You may be able to catch these dotted lines that represent the setback lines around the perimeter of the lot, where I don't know if you can see my cursor, it turns into a little editing thing, but the setback lines are indicated here, so you can see that the hashed marks for the addition fall within the building setback. On the north and south property sides, as well as the western rear lot, the addition falls within the setback there. The garage, the former garage that we're proposing to move, is represented by these hash lines in the upper left-hand corner of that property, or the northwest corner. And we're proposing to move that forward for a number of reasons, mostly practical reasons, in terms of just accessing the property from the garage and its functionality, its functional distance separation from the two structures make it a little bit awkward if it's all the way in the back, and also just to create a little more yard space. The most notable thing that might be obvious is that this lot is substantially undersized from the DRO regulations. This is a 50 by 130 foot lot, and it's about 3,500 square feet smaller than the minimum that the ordinance provides. So while the house may be modest in its scale, it is one of the it's on a lot that's substantially smaller than others in that R10 zone. I think I have another drawing I can just refer the board to. So there are a few lots around the lot 27. I'm referring to A1 of the same G101 exhibit. You can see there are a number of those, maybe 4 lots in a row that were cut down from 50 to 50 by 130, whereas many of the other lots are much larger. Lot 25 to the north and so on is of the standard scale. And more along Oakley, the lots just immediately to the rear are a little bit bigger, and then immediately to the south on Fairview, you can see there's a series of lots that are 85 by 130. So when they created the DRO, presumably it was just an average lot size in this particular area of what existed. But this particular subject property falls within one of those that are substantially smaller. So I'm going to zoom back out now, and then we'll get to just some discussion points on from the architecture itself. So as we, let me roll real quickly through the drawings, and then we can go back to the slight changes that we made in case there's any confusion. A111 of my exhibits is a plan. Sorry, let's go to A111, excuse me. A111 is the first floor level addition. So you can see that there's a family room to the south side of the addition, and on the northern side, there's a small entry foyer, a powder room, and a mudroom space. The detached garage is slid forward and separated by a fence with a gate to the rear yard. If we slide the next drawing down to A121, you can see the second floor. Chris had requested to see what's on the second floor, so this is really just a copy of the first floor. It's an exact stack of the two spaces, and then now the master bedroom is on the northern side with a bathroom and some closet space. The access to that space is through a very small bedroom that used to be located at the top of the staircase. As we view the house on exhibit A201 as viewed from the north side looking south, which is as if you were standing in the driveway. The existing structure is hatched all in brick to the left of that G1 drawing, and the new addition is pushed out to the back. The roof line is slightly slower, but the exact same pitch. The material is identical to match. In this particular case, we're continuing the brick base around the entire building, but we're going to infill with clapboard, which is an appropriate material to that vintage and that historic era of the architecture of this particular structure. And the drawing below is the front elevation, the front view of the house as viewed from the street. The garage on the right-hand side, there are no proposed changes to the front, I should say. Again, I'm referring to drawing A1 on sheet A201. You can see the outline of the garage, which is behind the existing building, but when viewed in an architectural drawing, there's no perspective, so it looks as though it's immediately adjacent, but it's pushed behind the building by several feet. And then as we go to the other views on sheet A202, G1, the exhibit at the top of that page, is the building as viewed from the south. It's sort of just a mirror image. It's a very symmetrical composition. It's the same proportion in terms of the existing building and the existing roof. In the foreground, you can see the what used to be some kind of a porch structure, we believe, has been filled in at some point over the years. And then to the left is where the west is where we're adding our two-story addition. So we have a family room windows and a fireplace chimney that rises up the middle of that facade, and then some blank wood panels above that, above the architectural facade work that connects the structure from top to bottom. And then you can see the south face of the garage and its proximity as a sort of one-story structure. The view on the bottom, which is drawing A1 on A202, just shows the south facing view with all the windows facing the more private part of the lot. The family room space is down below, and then the master bedroom space is above. Again, very symmetrical composition. The design is intended to be inspired by a sleeping porch and filled in over the years, so it gives that more transparent, less massive sort of juxtaposition against the existing house. Now, I'd like to just go back, if I could, just to the very first drawing, and I'm going to just toggle to give the board a sense of what we've done in terms of changing this with some of the comments that we received by Krista Anderson. The first is the proximity of the garage to the north property line. Now, the current garage is really essentially a foot or a little less distance from both the rear yard and the north yard. There's some difficulties in pulling that further away from the property line just because it has to function as a garage. There is a requirement to have garages. In fact, there's a requirement for 2 garages in Summit, which would be virtually impossible on this lot. But with the practical aspect of trying to bring a car in and the driveway right along the property line, it's very difficult to push it too much further off the property line. That being said, if you can notice that slight adjustment when I moved my cursor, that's the difference is what we've proposed here with the new exhibit is we've pulled the property, the garage off of the property line to allow for serviceability and constructability of that without having to trespass onto the northern neighbor's property line. In doing so, we sort of had to push it back just a little bit further in order to just be able to make that swing into the garage. So essentially for every foot or so, we've got to bring it, we've got to push the garage even further back to the rear yard.
I can ask one question before I get any further. So it looks like you're now requesting a 2-foot setback from the side yard property line. Is that correct? If I'm reading it right?
That's correct. We're requesting 2 feet where 4 feet's permitted.
Okay.
The drawing A111 will show the same thing. If there's one other point that Krista pointed out. It's not really necessarily a zoning issue. It's more of a building code issue, but it can affect zoning. And that is that any building entrance with a stair that has 2 or more risers is required to have a landing regardless of the swing of the door. So in our original proposal, we did not show a landing at the door and the stairs spilled out into the driveway. With the new proposal, we simply turned the stair sideways to allow for a landing and have the stairs spill toward the back. Again, if you look at this drawing, you don't blink, you'll miss it. But if I toggle back up, you can see the difference in where the garage is currently located. I'm sorry, where we originally proposed it, not where it's currently located. Originally proposed to where it is now. It's sort of a shift south and west. And then you can see the staircase change as well. Second floor, there was that second floor, there was just, I already went over that. There's no alteration because that document didn't exist. A201, this exhibit also has slight modification. As I click through here, back and forth, I don't know what the real-time translation looks like to you guys, but you can see the staircase, the little stoop from the rear, from the side mudroom entrance, kind of flicks on and off. That turns sideways, and then the garage in drawing G1 pushes slightly to the west. And then on the lower drawing, A1, you can see how the garage kind of just sneaks in, tucks in a little bit further behind the house. There's another code issue that Krista pointed out, and that is that the fire code, the building code, is not really anything to do with zoning or the DRO, doesn't allow openings of any kind in any structure to be within 5 feet of a property line. So by pushing the garage to 2 feet and changing the door to an 8-foot door, we can meet the 5-foot standard. That was another thing that Krista pointed out. And the last drawing is really just the same thing on G1 of A202, where you can just see that it sort of pushes the building just back. And then back to my site plan, I neglected to point out another request. There was not originally an air conditioning condensing unit location proposed on our plan. And in the new plan, now I have to scroll down here, bear with me. I don't know if everyone can see this. In the new plan, we've located the air conditioning condensing unit along the southern face of the garage, of the proposed garage. It's really one of the only it would be permitted to go along the driveway on the northern side of the house in terms of its distance, but I think it just creates a little bit of an impracticality over there in terms of the pavement coming right up to the house and cars being parked there. And so, and we prefer not to put it on the patio that exists on the southern side. So this seems to be the best location in terms of its access to neighbors, because no one can see it except for the Odenoths, and we can screen it with landscaping from them. So I hope everyone can see that little AC marked square that's in there as well. I think that's all of my exhibits. Before I get into the variance relief, are there any questions from the board or from the professionals on the exhibits or on the proposed structure?
Questions at this time? Well, there'll be another opportunity after Mr. Kaufman has reviewed the variances. Okay. Yep. Press on, Mr. Kaufman. Quiet group
Okay.
tonight.
Great. Okay, so a couple of things. We are requesting a C1 variance for the expansion of the non-conforming building coverage condition. The application that I put before you has demonstrated the hardship with respect to this variance. The lot is clearly undersized for the zone, and there are structures on the property by which their very existence actually creates a hardship. And an expansion in any direction results in an automatic expansion of the non-conforming condition. There really is no detriment to the public good, as the proposed additions that we've laid out fall within the required bulk setbacks for the zone. So in terms of the height, the side yard and rear yard setbacks, there really is no violation. So in essence, it takes on the same feel with respect to the property lines and consistency, and it's consistent with all the other zoning standards, that the general public really cannot perceive that it's in violation of any of these coverage standards, short of looking at a map and recognizing that there'd be an area violation. So we think that we meet the criteria for C1 on the building coverage condition there. We're also requesting C1 relief for the relocation and reconstruction of the existing non-conforming accessory structure, the proposed new detached garage. The existing garage is 1.9 feet from the side yard and it's 2 feet from the rear yard. So what we're proposing to do in this application is to improve the existing rear yard violation by increasing that setback from 2 feet to 34.7 feet. The side yard is also getting slightly improved by increasing the setback to 2 feet. The hardship in this case is evidenced by the location of the existing driveway and the primary residence. We really obviously can't move the house, and with the driveway, we don't have a whole lot of options either. It's right up against the property line and it's right up against the house. It's just barely wide enough to get the car down. So there really is no other location for the garage without substantially increasing the lot coverage. This proposal, in doing so, even though we are still over on the required lot coverage, our entire proposal reduces our lot coverage from the current condition to a lesser coverage in terms of lot coverage. The ordinance actually requires a garage, and it actually requires 2 enclosed garage spaces. So it may be obvious to see why this provision's impractical, but also nearly impossible without, it is impossible without increasing the non-conforming building and lot coverage conditions. So if we were to try to meet the minimum garage area, we would be increasing lot and building coverages rather than what we're trying to propose, which is decreasing it. The garage is otherwise conforming in terms of its height and its permitted use. So although I think I mentioned this, I just sort of mentioned this, the lot coverage of 48.6% is what we're proposing for lot coverage, exceeds the required 35%. Should the board decide to approve this application with all the variances that we've requested, the net lot coverage decreases about 8.7%, so down to 39.9%. And we feel that an application that improves an existing non-conforming condition meets the criteria for granting C1 variances for lot coverage. Improving a condition cannot by definition be detrimental to the public good, and the hardship of an existing non-conformities of the lot size and the structures, I think, apply in this case. And finally, we are requesting a D4 variance for exceeding the maximum floor area ratio. Board's heard testimony regarding the size of the existing house. The existing house living space is less than 1,500 square feet. And although that home currently conforms with the maximum 25% FAR, but because of the size of that lot, the undersized lot, it would prohibit this owner or any owner in the future from ever being able to lawfully expand this living space. And I think Mr. Odenoff clearly pointed out that it's just a matter of, it's a unique condition, but it's a matter of necessity, not a matter of luxury. It's just a standard of living to trying to raise his family in that house on that street, while there are other homes that can be built large enough to accommodate that. This one just happens to be on a smaller lot and unable to do so. In essence, allowing this expansion, I think, would enhance the intent and purpose of the zoning by allowing more uniform size and scale to the homes in the neighborhood. Again, a lot of the neighborhoods have already been, homes in that neighborhood have been expanded already. You've heard some testimony of one of the neighbors recently, even tonight, that have been making improvements to their lot. So being able to keep the homes of a consistent size, regardless of where the lines are drawn for the properties, seems to make sense. There's no harm to the public good from granting this relief as it's located within the bulk setbacks and fully in the rear of the property, less visible from the public view, and therefore there's no damage to the character of the neighborhood. This board's Historic Preservation Committee also stated in its report that the proposed, I quote, the proposed addition of the house at the rear of the house of the 1915 house is keeping within the existing building. Architecturally speaking, we've done our best to try to create something that's very uniform and conforming to that particular period, so it would look very appropriate when it's all finished. So as the architect for the project, we certainly feel we put forth an elegant solution to a very common problem with growing families in Summit, and particularly those with an undersized lot. We have worked to maintain or even improve some of the bulk requirements and have kept the addition, which is appropriately styled to the existing historic structure, largely in the rear and out of the public view. The lot coverage has been reduced and the existing setback violations were actually improved in this application. The board can accept this application and grant variance relief based on having met all this criteria for hardship, and both the benefits outweighing the detriments, as well as the special reasons that were put forth in the testimony that I just given for the record. If the project, if approved, enhances the intent and purpose of the zoning, and it allows for a more uniform size of the homes within the context of a neighborhood, which I think goes to the consistency of the zoning and the DRO. If this lot were simply the minimum size required for the zone, we wouldn't be here tonight. All the numbers, we've run the numbers on the minimum size lot. We would be conforming, and we'd have more than enough room to comply with the minimum side yard setback for the detached garage as well. So with that, we ask the board to approve this application, and I thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions you might have.
Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Yuko, you hopped off of mute there. What's on your mind?
No, I just want to ask a kind of a general question. So we have these two versions of Exhibit G101, and one of them, the newer one, is obviously responsive, at least partially, to some of Krista Anderson's comments. I assume she has not seen the revised G101 yet. Is that correct?
We did submit them on Friday, and her office acknowledged receipt and was sending to the board sometime this morning. I don't know that she had time to personally review them. Have to talk to her about that, but we did our best to try to get them in right away.
Yeah, so which is what I assumed. I would just like to say, assuming we approve this, that we have a condition that Krista verifies, the garage location is in fact 2 feet as has been testified, and that the reconfiguring of the stairs is, I just want to make sure we're not creating some other problems that Krista might come up with if she sees these plans. So I'd like to know that she's going to review these before final action happens.
What would that condition sound like, Andy? A fair point, Tom, right? That this may be exacerbating other issues, setbacks, or Lord knows what calculations.
Yeah, so I think what we could propose is that the updated plans would be reviewed and approved by the zoning officer, If there were particular aspects of those plans that we wanted to focus on, we could note that as well in the condition.
Okay. And I would just maybe call the attention in that particular condition, the variances that they're seeking. So things like the side yard setbacks, building coverage, FAR, lot coverage. Not to try to include everything, but I want to make sure at least those issues aren't getting exacerbated.
Certainly.
And I do want to say I appreciate the applicant's effort to address, at least partially address, some of the concerns. That's very much appreciated.
Right. And may I follow up just Tom's question, just point of information for myself? Maybe this is to to Mr. Ball. Given that it takes us about a month to draft and approve these ordinances, Krista ought to have had time to review and verify before we approve the ordinance, so that if there was an issue, it would come up quickly. Am I correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay. Actually, let's step back. Mr. Dower, do you have any questions, comments on this application?
I think Mr. Kaufman addressed most of the comments I had. The two outstanding ones were the existing gravel area that's noted on the plans in the rear of the property, if that was going to be seeded and topsoiled like the other areas were. It didn't say what that area was.
Brandon, can you address that for Mr. Dow?
Sure. Yeah. As of right now, it is a kind of a digging area for my son's trucks, but I think that we would probably make the entire kind of back behind the garage and where that gravel is grass. So we have kind of a nice wide open space.
Okay. And then the only other question would be the comment about the garage being under the canopy of the tree of the neighbor's property and any impact on the health of that tree. And that was, we kind of deferred to the city forester for that comment. And other than that, I agree that submitting the plans and having Krista review them ahead of time for all the conditions is probably the best way to proceed.
Okay.
And no further comments.
Thank you, Mr. Dower. Mr. Millay, do you have a question?
Yeah, in fact, regarding the location of this garage, looking at Fairview Avenue, most of these garages are at the end. Is this the only one that we are moving forward to become an attached garage? And if we keep it the same way in the back, isn't there room to increase it to become 2-car garages at the same location, far away from the house? And also in this case, we will avoid having this garage very, very close to the property line. 7.7 of a foot is really very, very close to the property line, which I object to. And I think the location in the back is similar to all other garages on the street. And why should we allow for this exception?
Kaufman, would you like to dig a little bit deeper into the location of the garage and maybe some of the work that you did to consider alternative locations?
Yeah, I think that from our perspective, there's a couple of issues at hand. I mentioned earlier that by moving the garage forward, there's a practical aspect of being able to have a garage functional and in a close proximity to the house. There's also an environmental impact, which was noted in the environmental committee's report even. We're reducing the amount of lot coverage, and lot coverage generally equates with a couple of different things environmentally speaking. One of them is heat island, and the other one is simply just open green space. And the third one really is stormwater. And by moving the garage forward, those things kind of get mitigated and it creates a little bit more open space to the rear. Now, if we're talking about, I think what was suggested there was pulling the garage off of the property line to meet the setback standards and then making it a 2-car garage. Most certainly that would substantially increase the lot coverage and the building coverage variances that we're requesting. So not only would it increase or substantially the building coverage, it would also increase lot coverage as well, putting us into a much more severe variance case in a much more densely developed lot.
For my previous question, is this the only case on Fairview Avenue? Or do we have a similar case where we have moved the back garages to become attached and bringing them forward? That is a question. I mean, is it the only, because I'm looking at the street, and I didn't see any other case where this situation occurred.
I'm sorry, is that a question for me or a question for the board?
No,
For you, Mr. Kaufman.
For
Yeah, are
you.
there any other homes that have similarly positioned their garage as you have proposed for this application?
You know, I don't know of any directly. Brandon, do you know of neighboring garage you could point out?
Sure. So there, I believe, is maybe one or two on kind of our side of Fairview that have forward-facing garages. One that's attached a couple doors down, but you're right that most of them are at the back corner. But then on the other side of the street, but still on Fairview, there are quite a few that are forward-facing and actually attached to the house, which is not what we're proposing, but kind of similar location on the lot.
Or something. You keep picking at your leg.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malay. Any questions from members of the board for the applicant or for the architect rather? All right. Scott, anything you want to add? I want to hear from Scott on this. Sorry, we're putting you to work tonight. This seems like an architect's puzzle. So what, anything catch your eye, stand out?
No. I have commentary, but no questions.
Okay, fair enough. All right, then we'll, yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Did we mention the patio again? Are we keeping the patio or are we removing the patio?
Good reminder. Mr. Kaufman, could you maybe, I don't know if you want to pull up the site plan again, or if we can talk about what,
Sure.
if any, inclusion of patio the board is considering for inclusion in this application. I heard a bit from Brandon about, some leftover patio, but let's be specific, especially if we're asking for something to be approved this evening.
So as part of our application, I'm going to go back to the site plan G101. I'm going to scroll over to drawing H9. The only patio that we're currently proposing is the existing patio, whatever's remaining of the existing patio, which fills in the sort of this courtyard gap on the southwest side of the house. So our addition falls within the setback. The existing patio is just going to be, we'll pull up part of it that's underneath the building, and then we'll put back the rest of the patio up against the side of the building when we're finished excavating. That's the only patio that we're currently proposing. We did discuss the potential of doing a small patio in the back, and I think that, Brandon, you can step in again. We discussed it, and you thought for now you want to maximize the lawn space, and you thought you'd put some Adirondack chairs out there and the kids have room to play. And this was enough to put a little table out and maybe a barbecue, which is what you have out there now anyway. The board's, I think, asking, if we're going to be doing something like that in the future, should we include 150 square feet or something of additional coverage within the variance for, to be located in that area?
I think there's two questions, Mr. Kaufman. So the existing patio, because it's been called out as something that exists without known variance. So the existing patio, do we, and it sounds like we foresee it existing essentially in its existing form, and that would be considered as an additional variance for approval this evening. That's the first kind of question. Brandon, do you want to leave the patio pretty much as it is and where it is?
Yeah. Again, we have the steps that we would use to enter, that we use to enter the backyard and would use to enter the backyard if this all gets approved, lead out there. So I think that having a patio there is practical, so you're not stepping in the mud. So I think we would ideally like to have it continue to be there.
And Mr. Kaufman, I think I heard in your comment that through the construction process, there may be some disruption to the patio, some repair may be necessary, but there's no plans to expand upon that particular patio.
That's correct.
Okay. And then Brandon, I heard from you earlier that you don't have plans to add any additional patio at this time off the back of the new addition. Is that right?
We don't. I will say, we have a whatever it is, six chair kind of round outdoor patio table that's on our current patio. So, the 150 square foot or whatever that is, if anything that we were going to ask for, it would be to basically have a place to put that table. And it would probably be directly to the rear of the proposed addition.
Mr. Coughlin, can you give us a sense of, just so we can 100% cover on this, what's the impact on lot coverage if we were to include, say, another 160 square feet?
Yeah. You go to my chart here.
And board, bear with me here. I'm only entertaining this because Chris is getting another crack at these plans, so we might as well give her something to work with.
35. So 160 additional square feet in a to be determined format would put us to 37.5%. Why does that not look right to me? Something went wrong. Sorry, went the other way. 25.94. I subtracted it. 4. So it'd bring us to 42.3%, where 48.6 is existing and 39.9 is proposed. So an additional 150 plus or minus 3% increase from our proposal, but still a 5.5 to 6% decrease on what exists. Is that helpful?
Thank you. All right, so I've put it out there, and I'm not meant to deliberate here, but does the board have any strong objection to the inclusion of that additional space, knowing that Chris is going to review it again? Liz?
I'd rather us do it now than them coming back.
Okay. And I'm not forcing you to spend more money, Brandon, but is this something that sounds like you might be interested in entertaining?
Yeah. I suppose if yes, thank you for bringing that up.
All right, don't send the bill to my house, please. All right, so we'll proceed. We'll proceed then with those adjustments. Andy, you're kind of following along here. So 160 square feet. The plans would be adjusted to reflect that additional coverage in the rear.
Yes, and the final number, if I heard it correctly, requested for lot coverage would then be 42.3%. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that was good. Any other questions from members of the board?
Oh, another quick question.
Yep, please.
Did you consider a tandem garage?
A 2-car kind of garage? Is that what
Like
you're asking?
tandem, yeah.
Front and back, she means.
Yeah.
Oh, front and back. Well, actually, I think that it's on that plan. We had at least talked about having a garage door in the back of the garage to be able to get a lawnmower through, or any other kind of vehicle that we need to get to the backyard. Frankly, I think that a 2-car garage, our current, it's like a 1.5 car garage kind of size, and it takes up half of the yard, or half the width of the yard. So I feel like 2-car garage is just bigger than what the lot feels like it can handle. just from living here. That's my experience. So I had not seriously considered putting a larger structure than a 1-car garage back there.
I have a question for you.
Yep, please.
Are you putting a car in your garage, or do you plan to put a car in there, or are you just going to use it for storage?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, right now it is purely storage and only things that you don't mind mice and other larger rodents getting into, which is a lot of the purpose for why we're kind of pressing to be able to do this. I think that if it's closer to the house, that it probably would be used at least in bad weather situations. Frankly, with a kind of narrower door and whatnot, I don't know that it's going to be used every day, getting kids in and out of the car. But it would be used more than it is now for an actual car.
Do you just park your cars in your driveway then?
That is generally, I would say, the vast majority of our street. That's what people do. They park kind of adjacent, right next to the house. That's the purpose of the door being kind of off, right off the back of the addition, to be able to kind of walk right into the mudroom effectively. I think that that's probably where we would use it most of the time. But again, if it's going to snow or it's bad weather or something, I'm sure we would use the actual garage if it's usable.
Until all the bikes and the other toys go in there, and then.
Are you saying my kids' toys are going to get bigger as they get bigger? Because I don't know.
Get ready.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure over time it'll get taken over by all those things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Barring any other questions from the board, which I'll pause once more for. Any questions from the public? I don't know if there are any members of the public here for this application. If you are, we'll want you to hop onto video and hop off mute. But I don't see anyone or hear anyone. Okay. Brandon, I think that Mr. Kaufman was your only witness. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. And because we didn't see any public for questions, I assume there's no public for comments. Again, pausing, seeing no frantic hand waving. Anything you'd like to say in conclusion, Brandon, before we move to deliberate?
I don't think so. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, Andy. What do we end up with here?
So I have 2 conditions noted. First is that the applicant will comply with the conditions noted in the board engineer's report. And the second is that the updated plan shall be reviewed and approved by the zoning officer to ensure that none of the requests for variance relief are exacerbated by the application.
And to be clear, in addition to the variance for FAR and the others noted, we're adding that setback for the existing patio.
Yes, so the 2 changes to the variances noted in the application were that the existing patio would remain at 4 feet from the property line where 12 feet is required. And then as discussed, the 3% increase to that lot coverage figure. So the final request would be 42.3%.
Okay. Mr. Odenath, Mr. Kaufman, sound right to you?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, with that, we shall begin our deliberations. Who haven't we heard from this evening? I'd like to chime in. Maybe Catherine will start us off. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thought you were going to say you've already heard from me, so then I wouldn't have to.
You haven't started us off yet, so impress us.
So I'm in favor of this application because I think there are significant hardships due to the lot size and the already pre-existing non-conforming conditions. I think that it's a thoughtful addition and change. It's modest in scope and size. I think that a lot of these older homes have the detached garages in the back of the property, and it actually, as was pointed out by the architect, it makes for more building coverage and impervious coverage than when you actually move those garages forward. And I think moving it forward improves the lot because it's more practical and it reduces that impervious coverage. So I'm in favor of that. And I think the aesthetic and the architectural plans are pleasant and they conform to the historic character of the home. So for all of those reasons, I'm in favor of it.
Any further comments, pro or con from the board? Claire, what's on your mind? You look deep in thought.
Well, I was waiting to hear from Mr. Leukitz, but I think that they have done a very good job with a challenging lot. The only thing they have going for it is that all the sides are perpendicular to each other. And, agree that this is an improvement over what they've got. I walked up and down the street and everything that's proposed is certainly consistent and contextual. So I'm going to support it.
Okay, I'm also on the edge of my seat. Scott, what do you got?
Well, this better be profound. I really like this design. I think it's fantastic. These older homes, they're not easy to merge or mesh an addition, make it look seamless. I think this addition is very thoughtfully done. It's properly proportioned. It just seems to make sense in terms of its relationship to the existing house, which clearly when designed never thought it was going to get, a second addition to it. But the architect's done a fantastic job with this. Really like the direction, and obviously they don't have a lot of room. They don't have a lot of places to go and work with, and I think they made the most of sort of a very limited footprint to what's going to take this house into the 21st century in terms of the way people live today. So I'm in favor of this application.
Scott never disappoints. Well done, Scott. All right, any other comments from members of the board? All right, I'll only add that I appreciate, Mr. Kaufman, your efforts to be responsive to Krista's memo. The movement, for example, of the garage, that additional foot, addressing building code concerns certainly makes me feel a little bit better about what we're trying to accomplish on this undersized lot, and I too could support the application. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right, Catherine, a second.
Second.
Claire, all right. Chris, give us the roll.
Sure. Vice Chairman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Leukitz,
Yes.
Toth,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Erdnath. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification. The motion was to approve. Will it include the conditions that were outlined? I didn't hear a motion with the conditions.
It will include the conditions as Mr. Ball had articulated them prior to our deliberations.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Let's check in. Ernie, how are we doing with our architect? Hop off mute for me, please. Sorry.
I think he's tied up with the zoning board in Burnsville, so I think we'll just make a run without him.
Okay, let's take a quick recess here. We're getting close to 9 o'clock. It'll give him a couple more minutes, but then we'll pick up with you as the first application after we return.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank
takes
you.
5 minutes or so. Thank you, everyone.
5 minutes.
You didn't get back, right?
Nope. Nothing.
Well, at least we're not complicated.
thought I was late. Okay, good.
No, you're good. You can always count on a couple of lagging board members. Don't worry, Michelle.
Those 5 minutes go quick.
They do.
By the time I get to the first floor, forget about it.
Thanks for your hustle. All right. Now Michelle is here. Chris. We have all our board members. And then I see Ernie and Kate. All right. All right, Michelle, you all set?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll jump back in. Ernie, you're comfortable moving forward without the architect? We can hold you the fourth spot if you really want it, but you know your architect. Hop off mute for me just so we can chat about it. Sorry. Oh, you're on mute still.
There we go.
There you go.
You got us now?
I have you now. Do you want to wait for the fourth slot or you want to just go for it?
You're the one that's going to have to give the delivery. I don't know what's happened to him.
If I could comment for a moment, I'm from Nick's office, and he is just about wrapped up with another variance hearing he has in Bernardsville. So I think shortly he will be able to join the meeting.
So
Can I have your name?
oh, here he is.
Here he is right now. I can be there in about 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let's pause for 30 seconds then, and we'll let you, we'll present your case.
Okay.
That was pretty impressive. All right.
Can I get the name of the person who chimed in for the architect?
When the architect hop backs in, oh, yeah, let's ask him when he comes back.
Hold on. I'll tell you who that is.
Okay.
He's the next name. His name is Jason Treiber, Treiber.
Thank you.
Who's that?
Works for Nick.
Oh,
Thanks, Jason.
Did I hear my name?
We did. Thank you for, thanks for finding the architect for us.
Yes. Hopefully he'll be here in a moment.
He said 30 seconds. We're keeping count.
If you want, I can start.
Yeah, let's.
Looks like he's going to be stuck on that meeting for a couple more minutes, but he said, Ernie, if you want to start, that he's going to try and jump in at some point here.
Okay.
All right, let's begin it then. Where's Andy? Andy, will you swear in our applicants here?
Certainly. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please, one at a time, state your name, spell your last name.
Ernest Gazelle, G as in George, S as in Sam, E-L-L.
Kathleen, K-A-T-H-L-E-E-N, Damon, D-A-M-M-A-N.
Thank you. And Kathleen, I know it was mentioned before, but does Ernest have the authority to speak on your behalf at this meeting?
Yes, he does.
Thank you.
All right then, Ernie, all we need from you is just a brief kind of explanation of the application, the variance you're seeking, and then we'll let your architect do the heavy lifting.
Okay. Yeah, Nick's here. Okay, thank you for your patience. This is a follow-up actually to an approval we got back in 2012 for a deck on the back of the house. And at that time, come early in 2013, it looked like my employer at that time was going to transfer me up to Boston. So we decided to hold off on the deck, and that's what happened. And we put it off. Now fast forward approximately 8-9 years. And now I've got a different employer who's headquartered right here in Short Hills, New Jersey, and I'm not going anywhere. So we've decided we are going to stay in this house. And we decided one last thing we wanted to do was put that deck on. We did, for entertaining purposes with the family, we did bump it up a little bit in size, about 45 square feet. And the reason for that, at the time we got the approval and for the design in 2012, Kate and I had between us 8 grandchildren. Well, that number is now 19. So as a result, we felt we needed just a little bit more space to be able to have a table, chairs, seating room out there when we are entertaining our children and grandchildren. And we're looking for approval from the board for this variance to put this deck on, finally, after 9 years.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for the background. Any questions, the applicants for the board? All right. If not, we'll move on to the architect then that can walk us through in a little greater detail. So hop off of mute there, Nick, and we'll swear you in and get you qualified.
And if you could unmute yourself first.
Hi, there you go.
Thank you. And please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Nick Bensley, B as in boy, E-N-S-L-E-Y.
Thank you. And would you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you appeared before aside from Summit?
Yeah, been registered in New Jersey with my own practice since 1991. I've been, most recently last month in front of Madison. I just got off with Burnsville 2 seconds ago. They were voting positive for us there. And I was in Summit last, I think about 5 or 6 years ago for a small addition on Ashland. Been in front of this board for a couple of variances over the years.
All right, thank you. If there's any questions from the board, or if none, I imagine they'll want to accept your credentials and proceed.
Accept your credentials, given you're coming from Bernards. They're pretty heavy hitters over there. So.
Yes, that was a lot longer than I anticipated. So,
all right. Thanks for joining us. If you'll just walk us through the application, the variances requested. It seems relatively de minimis, but
yeah,
it'd be helpful. Thank you.
As Ernie said, this was something that we went through back in 2012, pretty much the same project other than enlarging the deck a little bit to accommodate a better sitting and dining area. So I will just run you through some of the more pertinent information here and a little bit about what we're trying to achieve, what our concerns are, hopefully address your concerns as well. The property consists of a small 1,600 square foot 3-bedroom house, 2-bath with 120 square foot front porch. It's got a 2-car detached garage that's 460 square feet at the rear of the site with a long driveway to access it. The site slopes gently from the back towards the front being Morris Court, and slightly from the existing detached garage to the adjacent side yard on the opposite side of the driveway. There's a 4-foot high picket fence that runs along the rear of the side of the property. There's no major tree landscaping back there that's on the applicant's property. We're in the R5 zone, and property is currently non-conforming with regards to building coverage. It's existing at 29.5%, where 20% is permitted. Impervious coverage is 54.4%, where 45% is permitted. And the side and rear yard setback for the detached garage, existing detached garage, is 0.8 feet and 2 feet, where 4 feet is required. Need I say that obviously the impervious coverage and the building coverage are both driven by an oversized 2-car garage where only one is required in the neighborhood, and the long driveway necessitated to access that garage. The scope of our work that we're looking for relief for is to construct a 340 square foot deck adjacent to the existing detached garage and redo the exterior rear stair and transition from the driveway, which is currently non-conforming for code purposes. Steps are irregular, sloped, and somewhat of a hazard. Relief is being requested for permission to construct the deck and the landing stair system off the rear of the house. Will increase the non-conforming building coverage from 29.5% to 36.3%, where 20% is required. I should just note that our previous application that was approved, that building coverage, which again in Summit includes the deck, was approved for 34.8%. So the 45 square feet that we're adding on with a little dining bay and just extending the deck a little farther towards the rear property for a good seating area adds a little bit more about the coverage. Impervious coverage increases from 54.5% to 60.2%. Where 45% is permitted. Again, the previous application, we were approved for 58%. The third thing we're looking for relief is for the rear yard setback of 8.8 feet, which is to the back of the deck. Previously, it was about 10 feet in our previous application. So we've added about 2.5 feet to get a little better sitting area back there for our clients. 30 feet is required typically for a rear yard setback. That would take us right to the back door of the main residence. I apologize, this is my second one. I just have to look at my notes here. So the hardship that contributes to our coverage and building issues is an oversized 2-car garage, which I previously mentioned, detached garage, and the driveway necessitated for it. That driveway constitutes almost 14% of the impervious coverage on that property. And the front porch, while wonderfully appealing, and it is certainly used, that adds another 120 square feet to both building coverage and impervious. It doesn't really offer my clients any privacy, which is why we're looking for something in the backyard. And I should note, I stopped by there earlier today and wished I'd taken a picture previously. They currently use their driveway for outside dining, sitting and whatnot, their chairs, there's a table out there. That's the only place they really have to be outside with some privacy. And it's not even really all that private. Our design solution was really to locate a deck where it offers the most privacy. It's screened from the property on the driveway side by the existing detached garage on my client's property, and essentially screened from the majority of the property on the other side opposite the driveway, which also has a detached garage, which is right on the property line of my clients. We talked a little bit at one point about a terrace versus a deck. This was back in 2012. I had 2 concerns about that. One is a terrace is 100% impermeable, whereas a deck is semi-permeable. And frankly, a deck's just less expensive than a terrace to construct. So we opted then and continue to want to develop it as a deck. And we're also looking, the plus here is to solve the non-conforming code compliant stairs that are off the back of the house and make a little better transition coming from the driveway to the deck with just a little more even stair profile and a little better manipulation of getting from one level to the other. In our previous submission back in 2012, the board was concerned about screening. We agreed, and we still do think that there is a need for screening, particularly to the neighbor property on the opposite side of the driveway, which is slightly downhill. So we're proposing a landscape buffer along that fence line. I know that Kate doesn't want to do arborvitaes. She was talking to me today a little bit about that. And I said, you know, I think the board's concern is to ensure that you have privacy and that the neighbors have privacy visually. So really, I think probably they're going to want to work a little bit with a forester in town just to come up with an appropriate screening, as well as something that aesthetically satisfies their needs to sort of soften that detached garage that's next door, that's right on the back of their property. Water management, when we did this previous application in 2012, there wasn't an awful lot of concern about water. I know every municipality is. I was in front of this board 6-7 years ago with another deck that needed a variance, and I think the town engineer suggested that if we put some gravel below the deck, that would satisfy any concern about water runoff. That we did there, and again, it was a smaller deck than what we're proposing, but I'm addressing it primarily because the engineer strongly recommended putting the seepage pit in. There is no water problem currently on that property. I understand your ordinances look at a deck as being impervious. In reality, it's really not impervious, it's pervious. And my thought with putting gravel underneath it, 4 to 6 inches deep, will take that water that falls on the deck and seeps between the cracks that happen every 3.5 inches, slows that impact down to the surface below it. And with the gravel, that should perk into the soil just like it currently does as lawn. So that was kind of the way we wanted to try to address water concerns. Certainly will defer to the board's concerns about that and the engineer's desire to make sure there is no water problems that affect adversely the neighbors down below. Happy to answer any questions. Anything I need to clarify?
Let's start with Mr. Dower. Anything catch your eye there or ear?
I think we still, the city would still like to collect the stormwater, and that can be done through collecting it from the garage and or the rear of the home for the increase in impervious coverage versus the gravel underneath the deck. So that would be our recommendation. And I don't remember anything else that was really stuck out. The arborvitae was a condition of the prior approval. And again, as the architect noted, that would defer to the Mr. Linson, to the city forester, for his comments on that. And I think that was probably about all we had as far as comments.
So let's stick on that stormwater management point for a moment. Mr. Dower, what would a reasonable solution to the runoff existing and additional from this this renovation look like?
They could install a seepage pit somewhere in the backyard. There's not too much room. That's part of the problem. So we'd have to work with the city engineer's office to come up with a viable location away from the property line and away from the home, but that would pick up, as I said, that increase in impervious coverage.
So what we've done in these instances, understanding that location would have to be identified and the scaling determined, Nick, but more so, Katie and Ernie, is we would add a condition where a stormwater management plan would be required, and that would be subject to the approval of the engineer, and of course, developed in consultation with your own. Does that seem reasonable to you? Or I don't think we're going to lay out a stormwater management plan tonight on this call.
Okay, all right, that's reason.
I don't know. I didn't hear.
We have to consider doing the seepage pit.
I don't know what that entails. Can that be explained?
Can you explain how that works with a seepage pit?
Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah, it's a tank. They're usually concrete. There are some plastic systems now available for smaller instances. It's buried in the backyard. What the board's recommending and what makes the most sense, you're not going to capture the water coming through the deck. But what we could pick up is at least half of the garage, which would be 230 square feet of roof surface. And we would run that downspout that currently is in the back of the garage underground to a seepage pit somewheres off to the side of the deck, where that water would be collected in a pit and distributed in the ground at a slower rate so that it basically gets absorbed in the ground and does not run off to the adjacent property.
What is the expense of this? Is this like?
There's a cost associated with it, unfortunately.
And they're available in concrete, but plastic as well?
We've done a couple in plastic. It all really depends on the size that's required, and that's something we'll have to work out with the engineer.
So we're gonna have to look into that.
So if we go that route, is this another going before the board or how?
No.
What the board will do in this instance is it would give some discretion to the engineer and working in collaboration with you and your professionals to determine the most appropriate system for the scale of the water we're trying to capture. And we would expect you, of course, to be sensitive to your own budget. So no, this would not require you to return back to the board for further approval.
So there's no way of getting around this, the seepage pit.
Stormwater management is a priority for the city of Summit. And, while this is by no means the largest stormwater management system I think we're proposing, it would be a benefit to the application and would likely weigh positively in the board's consideration of our decision tonight.
We're gonna have to, yes, we will definitely have to work with you to consider this, yes, and work out the most feasible plan.
Of course. Yep. Okay. Thank you for your understanding. All right. So Andy, we would include a condition to that effect. That standard language you've used before.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Anything else, Mr. Dower, you want to touch on, or you're okay?
No, that would be it. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Any questions from members of the board for the architect?
Yeah, either the architect or the applicant. I want to make sure I understand what the applicant is proposing in terms of screening, because the Forester's report said that Mr. Linson, spoke to the applicant and that the applicant intends to plant evergreen screening on the south side of the property. Is that the specific plan? Is that what the applicant is proposing?
Yes,
Okay.
planting the trees.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. I thought I heard something a little different earlier. I think that was all.
Well, Tom, are you asking for a condition just to clarify that? Not a full-blown landscaping plan, but maybe something specifically including that language?
Yeah, I mean, only because we normally do incorporate the Forester's suggestions. We usually make them something akin to conditions, or that the applicant has agreed to do some kind of screening.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the key word here is evergreen, some sort of evergreen screening, particularly at the gap between the neighbor's detached garage and the back of their house, which is the sight line that is of concern to everyone.
Okay. So that would be, we would add language around that, Ernie and Katie, to kind of codify that in the resolution and really follow the language that's included in the Forester's report.
Right. Okay.
Great. Any other questions from board members? Okay. Any questions from members of the public? Are there any members of the public here for this application? No? Okay. All right. We would also give the public the opportunity to comment on the application if they were here, but again, I don't see any member of the public. So then I'll understand there's no further expert witnesses. Ernie, was there anything you'd like to say in conclusion before the board moves to deliberations?
No, we just,
I'm disappointed.
we appreciate the board's time, and we'll work with you we really want to get this done. It's been 9 years, and now we really think it's time to finally do it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for your understanding this evening. And before we jump into deliberations, I think, working with through our engineer and your engineer, I think you'll find a suitable, modest solution to address all these concerns and let you enjoy the property. So that's the goal. All right. With that, Andy, what are the conditions that we did land on?
I have 3 conditions. First is our usual condition, compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's report. The second is that the applicants will consult with the city forester regarding the planting of evergreen screening in compliance with the city forester's report. And third is that the applicant shall submit a stormwater management plan, which shall include the installation of a seepage pit to the city engineer for review and approval.
Okay. Nick, Ernie, that all sounds okay, like we discussed?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Who would like to begin our deliberations? How about Diana? How about that? Oh, go ahead. Come on. This is a good one.
it seems to me as though it's a fairly modest request, and I am a little bit confused as to why a wood deck is considered impervious or a pervious material. I do think that a lot of this coverage, the garage it looks actually to me like a 3-car garage with an enormous amount of driveway space. So, I mean, I think that is a bit of the obstacle that the property is up against. So, you know, I would approve it. I mean, I would support this application on those, you know, for those reasons.
Diana, thanks for letting me call on you. Anyone like to add to what Diana shared? Pro or con?
I would, viewing the property and seeing what they're doing for, you know, entertainment right now with the driveway, and considering they came to the board many years ago with a very similar project, I would definitely support a larger deck, considering they have a larger family now. So I would definitely support it.
Okay. Any other board comments? All right, and I would just draw attention to the conditions that the applicants have deemed acceptable. Appreciate, of course, their work on the landscaping to provide additional screening. I'm sure the neighbors will appreciate that. But something that weighs heavily, at least in my decision, is their willingness to entertain the stormwater management plan, which should benefit not just their property, but their neighbors as well. And appreciate them allowing us to kind of weigh this request for variance relief with you know, them offering this concession around stormwater management. So I certainly too can approve the application. And with that, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve, Mr. Yuko, a second.
I'll second.
Anna, second. All right, Chris, roll call, please.
Yep. Vice Chairman Minot,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Malay, Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Liketts,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Good luck, and especially with the 19 grandchildren.
I don't know if the deck's big enough.
Yeah, that's right. You know where to find us if you need more deck space, so we'll be here.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. All right. One last application for the evening. Chinquinas at 38 Hawthorne Place. Did we solve our technical issues?
Yes. Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Excellent. Good job. All right. We're going to get you sworn in here. And thanks so much for hanging in there tonight.
Right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And one at a time, please state your name, spell your last name.
Nathan Quina, last name Cinquina.
Craig Cinquina, Cinquina, Craig.
Thank you.
All right. If you'll just tell us a bit about the application. We understand you have an architect tonight, so he or she can do the heavy lifting for you, but just tell us a bit about what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so we're Summit residents going on about 13 years. We instantly fell in love with our house. We still love our home. We absolutely obviously love Summit, but absolutely love our neighborhood, love our street. And we're finally sort of at the point in our stay in the house where we're looking to address some of the issues that we do have it. And so to that end, we're looking to add some additional space to the second floor to better address our bedroom situation, really allow us to have a proper master bedroom on the second floor. We currently use the third floor as the master. And then the accompanying upgrades to the exterior facade to make the addition look seamless and look sort of intentional and original to the home. And so, yeah, in summary, I think that's it. And then Mike from Clausen Architects can walk through the details.
Wonderful. Any questions from members of the board of the applicant? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Let's swear in and qualify our architect. Mr. Clausen, is that you?
I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Clausen. Marvin Clausen is here as well.
Okay.
As the architect of record.
All right, Mike, let's swear you in and qualify you, and then we'll get going.
You could raise your right hand, whoever will be testifying. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And I believe that was an I do. It kind of cut out for a second there.
I do.
Thank you. And would you could you please state your name, spell your last name for the record?
Sure. It's Michael DiGeronimo. That's D-I capital G-E-R-O-N-I-M-O.
Thank you. And would you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before aside from Summit?
Sure. I have an undergraduate degree in architecture, a master's degree in city planning. I've been working for over 25 years in architectural, urban design, and planning work. I'm a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey, AICP certified, the National Credential for Planning. I'm an NCARB accredited architect, and I have a license in New York State for architecture. I have appeared before this board. I actually was a former member of this board. Thank Tom. And I have some recent boards that I've been appeared before: Maplewood, Asbury Park, McCutcheon.
Thank you. And any questions from the board, or would we like to accept his credentials at this point?
We will. I saw a thumbs up from Tom, so welcome back, Mr. DiGeronimo.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could share a screen, I'll walk you through our application.
Please, God. Yep.
So, as Neve and Craig had mentioned, this is 3038 Hawthorne Place. It's located in the R10 district in town. The house that you'll see, I'm going to run through some images. All these images were part of the application. We kind of reformatted them just to make it easier to share a screen, but they're all within the application. So the house is a 1914 colonial revival house. It has some significant architectural details. As you probably noticed in the HPC report, we were very sensitive to those, and it was a big part of Neve and Craig's vision for the house to make sure that we accommodated any new addition to it in a seamless way, so it worked within the context of those historical details. I'll walk you through some of those as well. I did have the site plan just to show briefly that we're really not impacting the site in terms of the ground plane in any way. Part of the reason for doing this was looking for a way that we could do it without affecting the footprint or the coverages or the setbacks. And so that's what you'll see as we go through the concept. Currently, there are some nonconformities on the lot for lot coverage and building coverage and FAR. But those are all existing nonconformities, and with the exception of the FAR that I'll get into testimony on, none of those are proposed to be increased as a result of this application. The neighborhood has a number of houses of a similar size. The lots are consistent for the most part. On this side of the street, they're slightly smaller than the ones across the street, but generally speaking, they're all of a substantially similar character, and the massing and the scale of them are very similar as you go up and down Hawthorne Place. One of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about in the concept is the idea of the addition and creating a secondary mass to the main mass of the house. And so one of the things we wanted to point out was that this kind of concept and this sort of configuration is fairly common on Hawthorne Place and in the neighborhood. And you'll see a number of homes that have kind of a main mass and then a slightly set back secondary mass that in terms of its height and its footprint is secondary to the overall configuration of the home. And so the two houses on the top are the two houses on either side of the subject property. So they both have that kind of main mass and then a slightly set back secondary wing to them. And then the two images on the lower part of the slide are 37 and 47 Hawthorne, and they both have a similar condition where there is a two-story secondary mass slightly set back from the house. So they're all of a similar era and a similar kind of character, each kind of different with their own set of details, but very cohesive and consistent. And we really wanted to make sure that what we were doing kind of blended in with that character of the neighborhood. So this is the house as it exists today. And as you can see, it has that secondary mass that I talked about. It is set back a couple feet from the main part of the house. And it currently exists and has a footprint and has building coverage associated with it. Similarly, on the front of the house, there is a raised landing. And by definition, because of the height of that actually counts as building coverage as well. So that's another element to this house that we're looking to improve. It doesn't necessarily require variance relief, but as part of the kind of aesthetic upgrades and in keeping with that historic detailing, we were proposing one of the elements to be a new portico, and I can walk you through that as well. So the proposed concept looks at adding about 315 square feet above the existing sunroom. This is the addition part. This is the increase in floor area. The concept also includes 3 dormers. Again, to help with the aesthetic and keeping with the historic character of the home. All of these dormers are actually under 7 feet. So by definition and ordinance, they're not increasing floor area. In one case, one is in a finished room, but the others are just for additional light and space in the attic itself. Again, it doesn't affect the floor area. The portico entry that you see here sits on top of the existing landing. So the existing steps and the existing landing will remain as they are today. Because, as I mentioned before, that already is considered building coverage. The addition of the roof and the columns doesn't increase the building coverage. And since it's open on 3 sides, it's not subject to the floor area ratio as well. We think it lends itself to a very stately appearance and gives that historic detailing and that seamless appearance that we're looking for to kind of extend the historic nature of the house and the neighborhood. I should also point out, we had mentioned, and I think the Historic Preservation Committee had noted it in their report, we were trying to be super sensitive to that historic character. And one of the things that Neve and Craig had found was the original blueprints, and we wanted to look and see how we could be true to kind of some of the original vision, and that those plans actually did have 3 dormers and a covered entry. So we were trying to really look at the history and let that be a guide to us. Within those elements, we've looked at some of the significant architectural features of the home, which would include a Palladian window, Yankee gutters, corner pilasters, dental cornices. And so we wanted to bring those elements into all the new pieces of the home, including the addition, but also the as-of-right improvements to the home as well. The addition, as I mentioned, sits on top of the footprint of the existing sunroom, so there's no increase in coverage as a result of it. It was designed to look like a sleeping porch, which in homes of this era would have been a kind of an open air condition where you might have the ability in those warmer months to actually sleep out there, or at least use it as a porch. You see them a lot in homes of this era, and a lot of times they've been filled in and and kind of made part of the house itself. So then the idea of kind of creating that look with some corner pilasters that match kind of the column details of the home, panels and windows, kind of varying conditions to kind of create some depth and detail to that. We specifically chose to do a flat roof on this element, again, to keep the height down, but also to preserve, and I'll show you in some of the elevations, there's a Palladian window on the one gable end, so we really wanted to be respectful and maintain that detail. But by doing the flat roof with the balustrade, we're able to kind of keep the cornice line of the addition part truly secondary to the massing of the overall house, and kind of tuck it in under the height of the main body of the house. So it really does become this secondary sort of subservient piece to the overall scale and massing of the home. So this was one of the exhibits in the image boards that we had submitted, and it just kind of shows the before and after, if you will, of the condition. So again, the house as it exists now, the front of it and the left side where the two-story addition would be are located here. We proposed adding that portico entry and the 3 dormers and the second floor addition as part of that. On the side, you can see this was the Palladian window I had mentioned. And so really trying to keep this cornice line of that addition down, so in scale it kind of works with the streetscape, and it's kind of consistent with some of those other homes I showed you images of that has a very similar kind of character and massing that we're trying to replicate. As far as the variance requirements and what we're seeking relief on, because it's an increase in floor area, it is a D variance for the floor area. And part of the design intent is really to be sensitive to the footprint of the property itself. There is, so we wanted to make sure that any improvements we made were completely within the footprint of the existing, so it didn't exacerbate any of the conditions, whether it's setbacks, coverages, or building heights. And so everything that you see here is it hasn't increased or changed any of those conditions, and it's purely that square footage for the addition that's what requires relief. While the dormers and the portico don't technically need any variance relief, we think they very much contribute positively to the design and to the streetscape, and are consistent with sort of the historic character of the home and the neighborhood, and are a big part of the overall aesthetic. The design, as I mentioned, of the 2-story was really looked at to be in scale and kind of in keeping with the other homes. So we don't feel that it's detrimentally impacting the neighborhood, because it's really something that's akin to what exists in many of the homes already there. The property has substantial landscaping around its perimeter currently, and that will remain, and we think that helps further screen any potential impact. And as a modest increase in floor area, we think that the lot and the property can in fact accommodate that increase in floor area, which is kind of the threshold for the D variance for the floor area case. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or go through anything in a little more detail.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, Mr. Dower, if there's anything at all for you to really comment on here.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions from members of the board? Come on, this isn't anywhere near as late as I thought this evening would go, so you guys have the energy. No, it's relatively straightforward. Mr. Millay, did you have a question or a comment? No. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Any questions from members of the public? I see a couple extra folks on here. If you are here from the public, you're welcome to ask a question to the architect at this time. No. Okay. We would normally as well offer the public the opportunity to comment on an application, pro or con. And I don't see anyone raising their hand, unmuting themselves. Okay. And I believe Mr. DiGeronimo, you are the only expert witness this evening for the application?
Yeah.
Okay. Applicants, anything you'd like to say in closing? This is actually ended up being a pretty straightforward testimony, and the board doesn't seem to have any questions or comments at this point.
Yeah, so given that, I don't know that we want to add anything else to the discussion.
Okay, fair enough. Safe bet. All right. Andy, I didn't hear any call for conditions. There isn't really an engineer's report on here. I think Lori said they had no comments outright. So is there any conditions that you foresee adding to this?
I didn't hear anything that required a special condition either, so I do not have any.
Okay, wow. What a night. All right. In a good sense, don't worry. Okay, with that, we can begin the deliberations. Who'd like to start us off? Oh, Claire, go for it. All right, jumping out of her screen.
I've been
Sorry,
waiting.
Tom.
Well,
I want to be next. I want to be next.
Okay, as the refugee from the Historic Preservation Commission, I got to say I'm very excited about this one, and I did walk up and down Hawthorne just seeing how it would fit in context. I think it adds a lot of presence to the house on the street. I do love that you gave us the portico from the yellow house on Prospect. I think that's a great one as well. The only potential concern I had at all is that your side of the street is higher than the other side. I haven't heard your neighbor across the street say they feel like they're going to be loomed over by this. So you're good to go with me. I know we can't put this in our resolution, but when it's all done, I do urge you to go in front of HPC and get an historic plaque.
I have a plaque too. I've got that pitch at my house as well, so no pressure. All right, any further comments, deliberation from the board?
Yeah, I just want to echo a lot of what Claire said, because it's one of my favorite little neighborhoods in Summit. We've had a couple cases in that neighborhood over the years, and I've always enjoyed looking at the houses there. I want to compliment the applicant and the architect doing a really great job in preserving the historic character, even adding to it. Yeah, so I'm definitely in favor of the application too.
Scott, you want in?
Yeah, just very quickly. I agree with what Claire and Tom said. It's a very lovely house in its current condition. But in looking at it, it seems a little almost off balance in terms of the massing relationship between the big and the little. And I feel like this proposed addition goes a long way to solve that problem. So I think they're bringing balance to the house. The dormers are a nice touch. The portico is great. It's all in character with the house. It's taking something that's already pretty nice and making it that much better. So I'm always in favor of that.
All right, so we've heard plenty of drooling over the architecture. Andy, how are we doing on the D variance? Do you have enough for the resolutions? Anything further you'd like to hear?
Yeah, I know the applicant's architect did mention that the site can accommodate the proposed increase, which is of course the standard. Unless anyone on the board feels that that merits more discussion, I believe that should do the trick.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Then with that, I too can certainly support the application and love the idea of ending this evening on such a positive note. And we'll entertain a motion from the board.
I'll move to approve. I'll second then. Claire and I are fighting over this one.
All right.
It just took me a while to get to the mute button.
All right, Claire motions to approve, Tom seconds. Chris, if you give us a roll call.
Vice Chair Manu,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right. Enjoy. We look forward to seeing your home in its finished condition, as you likely do as well in due time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
All right, board, hang in here. Chris has loaded us up with all kinds of resolutions and minutes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
For resolutions, 2 sets of minutes. So first resolution is 49 Montrose Avenue. The revised resolution went out earlier. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Malay, Ms. Toth, and Chairman Spur. And we need a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 38 Londonderry Way, application ZB 21-2043. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Malay, Ms. Toth, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur. We need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 535 Springfield Avenue, application ZB 21-2057. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Malay, Ms. Toth, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur. We need somebody to move that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes.
And our last resolution is 3 Edison Drive, application ZB-20-2028. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Ms. Toth, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur.
I'll
And you-
move.
Yep.
Second.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes.
And 2 sets of minutes, May 3rd, 2021.
Motion to approve both.
And a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And seeing none, and we also need the special meeting, May 5th, minutes as well. Would somebody like to move those?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that's all I got, Steve.
All right. Enjoy your early evening off, everyone. And we'll see you very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright.
Good night.